Hello, hey, hi, and welcome back to AttunePod. This week we've got a really exciting episode for you, and we're talking all about upskilling, mainly with a corporate focus, but it doesn't really have to be applied to just your professional life. It can definitely be applied to your personal life as well. I think, as per usual, it'll be great for us to start off with explaining what upskilling is.
So I think, obviously, it's not a textbook, but I think the best way to sort of capture what upskilling is sort of trying to increase your skill set in any given market to match, sometimes to match the increasing or growing demands within that respective market. So that might look like learning how to code in a specific language to match the demand for coders in the technology industry. That's, I think, sort of encapsulates what upskilling is. I think because of the changing demands of like the market dynamics and the likes, it's becoming ever more important to upskill. But I think it's probably also worth getting beneath the surface of why it's important to actually upskill where you can.
100%.
I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
So for me, I think very much a case of upskilling is a continuous journey, something that could happen continuously or that we should be doing continuously. And it's also something that doesn't necessarily have to be, as I mentioned earlier, professionally. It can be more so on a passion. It leads so much. So it leads into stepping out of your comfort zone and going a little bit further than what you would think you're able to do currently. As you mentioned, the job landscape that we have going on below, like we need to make sure that you're upskilling, especially with, we all know AI, tech and all that stuff that's coming around. Just because you don't do it in your day-to-day right now doesn't mean you may not need it in the future or be able to fall back on it in the future. I think that's what upskilling means to me, really.
That's a really good point. And I think to the point as to like, because some may look at previous generations and think, okay, but my parents had one job, one profession, one skill set, or not one, but you know what I mean, like one remit, and that carried them through their whole like professional careers.
Yeah.
So why is it so important now, more than ever, to actually upskill where you can?
I think it stems very much so from when it comes to, again, that landscape that we have. We're going into the digital age right now, Web 3.0, like all these things. We need to consider the fact that some jobs that we have right now, it's not going to exist later on. I think before, I don't know, don't quote me on this, but before the 2008 financial crash and all that stuff, it was a lot easier for you to be like firm or know that you're going to be okay. Redundancy always happens, of course, but it's again knowing that you have something to fall back on and be able to adapt to change. It can lead to better progression in your career, but it can also lead to a completely new path that you never knew about as well, right?
That's a really good point, yeah.
I mean, take me for example. I studied law at uni, and I was very adamant, yep, I'm going to be a solicitor. I'm going, by the end of it all, I'm going to be working in the Magic Circle firm, like whoop, whoop. It took COVID and a bunch of rejections from Magic Circle firms and other firms included for me to say, okay, cool, I'm going to upskill myself in coding, and I'm also going to skill myself in front end, I guess you could say, design work. So I started my own business in that sense. And because of that, I was able to then now be like, okay, cool, I want to take a look and learn a lot more about the corporate side of things from being inside a natural corporation. So it took changes to happen for me to adapt to and upskill myself and basically evolve in order for me to get to where I am right now. And it's a constant thing. You're always going to be evolving, always going to be, reacting and being proactive, or you should be at least, to change.
So true. I think another thing that's also worth considering is like nowadays more than ever, there's a real people with like that like widely applicable skill sets. So like even if you look at and think of like accountants can walk into any organization, any industry and get a job because it's just applied across the board. And also if you're an accountant, it's implied that you're like good at maths or you're good with numbers or you're good with into like simpler terms. And that can literally take you into consulting, professional, like so widely applicable that, and I think there's more and more roles like that where it's like you can go from, and that's even why some companies don't even care about your degree anymore, because it's not like you did law, so you're a lawyer, you did accounting, like you can, it's such a diverse pool of jobs that you can get given the skill set that you've got, that it's ever more important to actually upskill where you can. and make sure you have those evergreen skill sets which will apply to several different industries and jobs where possible.
Evergreen skill sets, that's the key word there. I feel like things where, should anything happen economically, COVID, for example, you're not going to be out of a job. You're all right. And even if you are out of a job, as I mentioned earlier, you're able to then fall back on that skill that you learned when your company paid for it, or when you chose to pay for it, whatever, when you chose to upskill it 6 months ago. You're now able to do freelancing, or, building your entrepreneurial skills, or whatever the case may be, or be able to apply for something completely different to what you were doing previously because you had chosen to upskill. It also could mean just genuinely more money.
Oh, how could we forget? How could you forget?
If it being so frank, more money, the more skills you have and the more skills that you're able to come and bring to the table to an organization, a team, whatever the case may be, you're more valuable.
Oh, facts. They can't get rid of you.
Period. More money.
Yeah.
If that's not another reason to do it, more money.
Absolutely. And to be fair, there could be, I know we've said like career advancements are one reason for wanting to upskill, but also there is a growing prevalence of, like you said, actually, you think you alluded to, people wanting to becoming entrepreneurs, but not going straight in to deep end. Like the amount of like people that I know who set up a business, but it's like, you had no relation, no insight, no nothing, just straight in. And to be fair, they may do well, but it usually takes them a longer time than the people that have been like, I worked in so-and-so, now I'm going out to do my own thing. Because effectively, you've learned from an expert or someone that's done it successfully and has frameworks and processes in place, then you can then apply it to your own thing elsewhere. So I know it sounds counterintuitive, but sometimes it's also worth upskilling in the context of entrepreneurship, not just to join a company, but also like, say, if you learn how to code or you learn how to edit videos, you can then freelance. And again, that's a form of upskilling without formally going into a job.
Yeah, it's upskilling, and it's giving you that sense of, I think we need to remember as well that there is enjoyment that needs to be had. You can make money and upskill yourself with something that you do enjoy. Like going back to that freelancing, that entrepreneurship side of things as well. Like you can take the time to essentially empower yourself.
Yeah.
To start that business, start that freelance site on Upwork or Fiverr, the case may be. And it may be a second source of income, which again, we can go into another episode, but what's it called? Multiple sources of income is also another thing. You don't need to be paid from this upskill, by the way. It could just be something that you're passionate about and that you actually enjoy, something that's satisfying. At the end of the day, it's hard to start something new, and it's hard to start a skill and to develop a skill, because a skill only gets, as you get better at a skill, it gets harder to maintain. Does that make sense? If anyone's played Sims, like the first, like there's a skill set, there's a skill progress bar, right? And they've got to do tasks, and progressively as you go to the next level of the skill, it gets harder. That's life, right? So making it something that you actually enjoy, you're passionate about. Your day-to-day job can be your day-to-day job, but something that you're upskilling yourself in can be something that you're passionate about or can take you to the next step that you want to be in. When there's motivation, it makes it easier for you to actually carry out and strengthen that skill, I think. But yeah, talking about skills, how would we now choose the right skill?
Oh, I think that is such a loaded question, because there are so many like schools of thought regarding what's the right like path to go down, which are the right skills to acquire. But I think the first thing that one should always do is actually just do their research.
Yeah.
Because I think there's always sometimes a bit of a disconnect between what we enjoy and what the market's paying, especially if you want compensation for whatever the skill is. You need to have there needs to be some alignment between what you enjoy, what you want to do, and also what the market's paying. I love sleeping. I can fall asleep like that. But am I going to get paid for that? Exactly. So it's like, you need to actually, yes, look at the things that you enjoy, but also what aligns with the market. And I think also, we've alluded to this in previous episodes, also being quite self-aware in that, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? Like I've said in previous episodes, will never, and I've been told that, in this, financial market, financial industry, being an accountant is like a good qualification. God knows I'm not doing it. No matter how many mentors push me down, I am simply not doing it, because I know I don't enjoy it. I will physically drive myself insane if I ever go down that path. It's also being self-aware, because yes, I could sloppily become an accountant or get the qualifications, but will I do well in it? No. And actually on that, nowadays, with the abundance of the internet and just things at our disposal, there is a plethora of ways in which you can learn a new skill.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any insight to share regarding what the best or most convenient places are to learn those new skills.
Most convenient, I would definitely say, is probably online these days, right? Most convenient. You can make it work around your schedule for sure. Also, for me personally, when it came to that coding back in 2020, I was doing it on She Codes. Pretty sure you may have heard of it. She Codes is where I studied or upskilled myself with coding, R and Python, CCS, and all these others, other languages.
I mean, I start thinking whatever that means. I mean, it sounds sexy, whatever that means.
And even now, the thing is, just a quick point on that.
Yeah.
Even though it was a skill that I upskilled back in 2020, because I didn't actively use it, I can't say like wholeheartedly that it's a skill that I now have. Because with these skills, it's not just to throw it back to the audience. You have to now to try and maintain that skill. You have to continue. A skill can only be a skill if you practice it, period. So I think making it accessible, if you can practice that online, if it's workshops or resources, books, for example, podcasts, all these other things, upskilling yourself in that way, in a sense that you're able to make it accessible for you to continually upskilling yourself in that skill or in a different one. But if you don't maintain it, it's almost worthless.
Oh yeah. As unfortunate as it is, that is actually really true. And I think in line with the conversations around upskilling, I think it's actually quite timely because we're currently in the month of September.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just like a given thing that most companies start recruiting, be that their early career opportunities or just in general, where they've reached a point in the year where it's like, okay, we're now in Q4, we have X and Y goals we need to achieve before the end of the year.
We've got budget
how are we going to get there? We need more resource. So I think they formally refer to it as a September surge. And I think upskilling is a perfect way to sort of prepare yourself for that next opportunity. That being said, though, just because we're throwing around the word upskilling and, you know, how there's very convenient platforms to access to get there, that's not to say it's always an easy feat. Like, it sometimes can be quite challenging. And maybe you can speak from like your own personal experience or just like, you know, what you've come to learn in general. But what are the sorts of challenges that one would have to bear in mind when they want to sort of pursue or upskill?
All right, so the first two, time management. The second one, resilience. Yeah, like easily, when I tell you, so let's talk resilience, right? I really alluded to it before. Wow, we've been using this word alluded all the time today, but I've already mentioned it before. But when it comes to you starting something new, you're starting something that you're not familiar with, you're stepping out of your comfort zone, you are going to fail. You're going to be, and it's going to be in aspects where you're literally like, okay, I did this wrong. Oh, I made a mistake here. This and that. You're going to have a lot more questions at the beginning, and it's going to make yourself consider, is this something that I really want to be doing? Do I really need to be doing this right now? Having that mentor to be like, okay, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing, and this is the reasons why I'm doing it, makes it a lot easier for you to then be a lot more flexible, a lot more kinder to yourself as well when it comes to the process of upskilling. And then talking about time management as well, I think it also comes down to in your day-to-day. So when I had done the She Codes, it was during COVID, right? So I had a lot more time, which was fine. However, I'm now I did a marketing qualification, right? Like a professional marketing qualification work. However, I'm doing that in a sense of, I'm doing that with a day-to-day 9 to 5. Time management, right?
Oh my God.
I'll say with my chest, the last 2 modules, I have completed the work within the last 2 weeks before the deadline, because I had a massive project going on. Like, it's fine, time management. But I think I'm not the best person to give management time tips, but you mentioned it back in the first episode, knowing when you best work.
Oh yeah.
Knowing when you best work. So if it's a thing where, you know, you're a morning person, then probably doing your studying like our babe over here did in the morning. Or if you know you're an evening person, then doing it later in the evening, of course, or whatever the case is. I think also, again, it's about actively knowing the people around you, or being like communicating with managers, for example, or family, friends, whoever you live with, that could impede in that time being spent doing that skill. And again, communicating with them why you're spending so much time now on this new skill, so that they can have compassion to understand why you're not spending time with them or not doing things that they expect you to do.
And a lot of the time they actually support it. It's just a case of bringing them on that journey with you. And to the point that you made about resilience, I think it's such a good point that you mentioned about it's easy to just be like, I don't understand this. What's going on? Why am I here?
It's so easy.
I think it was compounded by the fact that, do you remember when like we were younger, like maybe you were at school and you're constantly learning. You're never ever the expert in anything that you're doing.
And you're happy.
Exactly. And you're happy to pick up sports or like other extracurriculars because you're like, it's fine if I go and I don't do well because you're constantly in that learning phase.
You weren't,
but I think,
sorry to interrupt, but you weren't even concerned about failure.
Do you know what I mean?
And there was no,
because it was just the norm.
There was no,
just the norm.
Fam, we were falling over and being,
it was completely the norm. I feel like the issue is as you get older and you become, like in most cases, a professional, and you can do your job with your eyes closed. You're just an expert in your field. I think it makes it even more harder to then pick up a new skill because it's like I'm a professional, a very well versed professional. Why am I wasting time being a beginner?
I think as well though we need to deep the fact that we again are at the beginning. We are at the beginning. I'm sure most of our viewers are at the beginning of our professional careers or whatever career you want to put it on. It doesn't have to be professional, whatever the case is. The beginning of your career, right? Again, throw your back. This is the time to try everything, to bounce back, adapt, to learn some time management skills because I'm still struggling. But now's the time for you to do all that exploring and try all those different skills because one career that you thought you wanted to do back in, I don't know, for me, 2020, is now completely different. I went from doing law to now doing tech. There is some overlap, but it's not what I expected, right?
In general, I think if anybody or if people can just in general have the mindset of life is just a journey of continuous learning. I think the point at which you get to where you're like, I'm an expert, I don't need to, I know everything there needs to know, then you sort of hit a bit of a...
You're bored.
Yeah, you hit a roadblock. Even in, I don't know if it's the same case in tech, but in finance, you have to have 35 hours of what they call continuous professional development every year, learning a new, regulation has come out or whatever the case is. And I feel like that should be applied to just life in that we should never get to a stage where it's like, I've been there, done that. I don't really need to learn more or upskill.
And even if you have been there, done that, right? It's going in with the mindset of, okay, I've done this before. How am I going to do it differently?
Oh, yeah.
How am I going to do it better?
That's true.
It's fine to do, no one's coming at you for saying, you need to be trying something new, different all the time. Take the same problem that you had wherever it was, or that same situation, that same experience, and now do it, flip it on his head. Like that. So when you do it like that, then things that were once boring or stagnant, things that you once knew, all of a sudden you're like, "Whoa, I never thought about it like that." See through a different lens, and that can probably come with talking to different people, working with different people. I don't think just because you've done something, been there, done that, is an excuse to now be like, "Oh, I can no longer upskill myself within this bracket or within this profession or within this area of my life," because nothing is new in this life. When you think about it, everything is the same thing, but with variations.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I genuinely just hit the nail on the head because I think that the issue grows as people sort of get older as well. But I think all the points that we have covered really does nicely package the topic at hand, which is upskilling. I think from defining what it is to actually understanding how can you upskill. It should be almost like a second language where it's like, how can I always become better? On top of that, though, I think understanding that we're in an age where the internet is at our disposal. You could pick up a skill tomorrow if you wanted to, with minimal cost attached. You can pace yourself. You don't have to be physically present in a school or a classroom the way it used to be. And then on top of that, there can be monetary benefits that come along with these skill sets. So we would both definitely implore you where you can to continuously be a student and continuously be learning and upskilling where you can. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. That was our reality check. Yeah. that was our reality check, and what you do with it is completely up
to you, babes. And as per usual, you've got our TikTok at the Tune podcast, as well as our Instagram at the same name. And do feel free to listen to us. If you did enjoy this episode, do feel free to leave a 5-star review on Apple Music or Spotify or wherever you're listening to this podcast. And if you do want to see the video version, you can always join us on YouTube as well at AttunePod. So thank you so much for listening today, and we'll see you next week.